So this White House row, I mean, the White House is obviously iconic for a lot of Americans. They have a kind of emotional reaction to it. And Trump is knocking down more of it than we expected.
Well, we didn't expect him to knock any of it down based on what he had said just weeks ago, that his plan to build the ballroom, the 90,000 square foot ballroom that he now says is going to cost around $300 million, was going to take place in a way that left the building whole. It wasn't going to be right up next to the East Wing, but it wasn't going to touch it. Then suddenly, earlier in the week, there were reports that bits of the East Wing were being torn down. Yesterday, he conceded that the entire East Wing of the White House, which has been there since 1902 and has been the preserve of successive first ladies for generations, although Melania Trump doesn't really use it because she's not at the White House very much, it's all being pulled down. It will be gone within the next 24 to 36 hours. And what is so absolutely extraordinary about this is that this is being done without any permission, without any accountability. Unlike all of those previous numerous acts of renovation and remodeling that have been done. 1950, Harry Truman saved the building from ruin when he refurbished it, but that was all done in conjunction with the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the National Capital Planning Commission.
So are there not laws and rules about this kind of thing?
There absolutely are. I mean, a lot of them, and this will be familiar because we keep finding this out as Donald Trump tests the limits of his power, a lot of them turn out to be conventions and traditions, but there are some requirements that this White House has clearly flouted, and indeed the National Trust for Historic Preservation asked yesterday for the teardown to stop so that the plans that the White House has not yet submitted could at least be reviewed. And instead, he is sailing on with the wholesale destruction of the East Wing of a building that is not his. It's the American people's. It's a preservation site. And he's the only president who sort of moves in and treats it very much as though it's nothing to do with the American people. He can do whatever he wants with it.
It's just another piece of real estate.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about why he's doing this, because this great ballroom kind of conjures images of the kind of 1890s and 1900s and people in sort of wasp waist gowns and top hats kind of spinning around. There is a sense that he is going back to the so-called gilded or golden age of America at the beginning of the 20th century, when everything was about money. There was a lot of corruption, and it was all about sort of politicians and magnates, tycoons, sort of doing deals with each other.
Well, if you look at the pictures that he's brandished of what it's going to look like when it's built, it's torn from the pages of Versailles and looks like it would make a perfect set for Bridgerton. I mean, you can absolutely imagine that kind of ball being hosted. I mean, he says that his serious intent is to make it a venue for foreign visitors and their entourages to be hosted by himself and then successive American presidents. And if you think about his property empire more broadly, places like Mar-a-Lago and his hotels around the world, they've invariably got conference facilities attached to them. He claims successive presidents have craved for this kind of a facility. There's no evidence to support that view, and much more concerning about all of this is $300 million of expenditure, all of it being furnished, he says, by himself and his mates. We don't know that we're ever actually going to know which individuals and which corporations have donated money for this venture and what they're getting in return for it. And that's why there is...
I won't say the name, but at least one big media corporation has put a lot of money in, which makes you wonder, are they going to get special access in return for that?
Absolutely.
Very interesting. Let's turn on to, because Trump has also said that only unhinged leftists are worried about this. Let's turn on to the other big story of the day from him, which is he is going to impose what he says are tremendous sanctions on Russia after that last Putin phone call. Two companies in particular, Rosneft and Lukoil, which I think are half of Russia's crude oil exports.
Yes, two biggest Russian oil firms. I mean, pretty extraordinary that they were never sanctioned before, not only by Donald Trump, but not even by Joe Biden, given that we've been at this war in Ukraine now for quite a while. The sanctions themselves will freeze any assets that those two companies have in the United States. And Lukoil has some retail petrol stations on the eastern seaboard of the United States. So I'm not clear what happens to those. And it also means that the two companies will not be able to engage in any financial transactions that touch American financial institutions, and that could cause them real difficulty. Whether this represents a complete U-turn by Donald Trump and a true hardening of his position with Vladimir Putin, or whether in a week's time we've done another U-turn and another
Never
180,
tell, can you?
Anything could happen.
Because as I understand it, almost all of Russia's crude oil exports go to two countries. They go to either China or India.
Yes.
And the big question is, do the Americans, does Trump start to have secondary sanctions on Chinese or Indian companies dealing with?
Well, he's of course already placed
Russia.
those tariffs on India, which are due to penalise India for their acquisition of Russian oil.
India is now saying we're going to stop taking Russian oil.
Well,
is that right?
Donald Trump says Narendra Modi told him that he would no longer buy Russian oil. The Indians have notably not confirmed that. And secondary sanctions against China have been in the wind, but not actually have come to fruition. What we see is whiplash. It was only a week ago, it was last Friday, that he announced he was going to go to Budapest for another summit meeting with Vladimir Putin.
And that has now been cancelled, yes. Yeah. Very, very interesting. So it does seem perhaps that, again, he has maybe looked at the papers and thought, I'm being played by Putin, I don't like it, I'm embarrassed, I'm angry, and I'm going to do something.
Well, and critically, of course, he had the words of the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte whispered into his ear yesterday, just before that sanctions announcement was made. And I think we keep seeing he's only ever as good as the last person he's heard from.